Okay, so ready to dive in.
Absolutely. Let's go.
All right, today we're tackling a topic that's, well, it's pretty close to home for a lot of us, I think. Teen athletes. Specifically, how the pressure cooker of competitive sports in Australia is impacting their mental health.
Yeah, it's a big one.
It really is. We're basing this deep dive on an excerpt. It's called The Increasing Competitiveness of Sports in Australia is Having a Significant Impact on Teenagers. Catchy title, right?
The point.
Definitely. And I think a lot of us can relate, right? Whether it was sports, music, academics, whatever. Like, have you ever felt that pressure, to be the best?
Oh, for sure. I mean, who hasn't, right?
Exactly. But for young athletes, it seems like it's a whole different ballgame. It's not just about their own drive to succeed.
Right. This excerpt really digs into that, how it's this whole external pressure cooker too. Coaches, parents, the whole social media comparison thing.
It's like they're constantly being bombarded with this message of winning, winning, winning.
Yeah, and the pressure to specialize early, focusing on just one sport from a young age.
Hmm.
It's actually doing more harm than good, according to this excerpt.
Yeah, and it's kind of counterintuitive because you always hear about, kids getting a head start, specializing early. But the source actually says that young athletes who specialize, like before they're 14, they're way more likely to burn out.
Like 30% more likely.
30%. And to actually quit sports altogether, like they're giving up something they supposedly love.
It's almost like they're sacrificing their well-being, for this idea of reaching this athletic, this pinnacle, this athletic success.
And it gets even more complicated, right? Because you're a teenager, you're already figuring out who you are.
Exactly.
And then you throw in this, intense focus on one sport. The source talks about how a lot of these kids, their whole identity gets wrapped up in how they perform.
Yeah, so then, what happens if they get injured or if they don't make the team?
I mean, I can't even imagine.
It's tough. The excerpt really dives into this,
Yeah.
how it can lead to some serious mental health struggles. I mean, we're talking depression, anxiety, some even, turn to performance-enhancing substances.
Yeah, reading that section about injuries, it really hit home for me. I remember I was sidelined for months when I was a teenager, broke my ankle. And it wasn't just the physical pain, it was this feeling of being lost. Like, who am I if I can't play soccer?
I can see that. I mean, it's a huge part of your life.
It is. So how do we, I mean, as a community, how do we better support these young athletes, when they're going through something like that?
Well, it's got to be more than just the physical rehab, right? It's
Right.
about providing that mental and emotional support too.
So helping them process it.
Yeah, the disappointment, the fear of falling behind, and that potential identity crisis, that comes with being sidelined.
And I mean, let's be real, it's not just the injuries, it's the pressure of their schedules too. They've got hours of training, they've got schoolwork piling up, maybe a part-time job. And then, somewhere in there, they're trying to have like a social life.
Right. Try to squeeze it all in.
It's a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
I definitely remember those days, like just feeling completely overwhelmed, trying to juggle everything. And then this excerpt, it brings up another big one,
Go on.
toxic coaching
Mhm.
and parental pressure. It's something a lot of people can relate to, even outside of sports.
For sure.
It's that yelling from the sidelines, putting down other players, just constantly emphasizing winning above all else.
It creates this environment of anxiety, right? Where kids learn to fear failure instead of embracing it as part of the learning process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, how many kids are actually enjoying the sport.
Yeah.
I mean, I played basketball in high school.
Yeah.
And our coach, oh, he was intense, like just sucked all the joy out of the game.
I can imagine.
And this excerpt argues that we need like a major cultural shift. We got to move away from this win at all costs mentality and focus more on personal growth, teamwork, and just actually having fun.
Right. Like, remember why you started playing in the first place.
Exactly.
And I'd even go a step further and say we need to actively teach, positive reinforcement,
Oh, yeah.
emotional intelligence
Yeah.
to coaches and parents.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, imagine if they were equipped to really understand the psychological impact of their words and their actions,
It could be huge.
it could be transformative for these young
For
athletes.
sure. And the excerpt actually highlights some schools and sports clubs that are doing some really cool things. They're incorporating mental health programs, teaching kids about stress management, resilience, even like mindfulness techniques.
That's great to hear.
It is. It's so important to give them the tools to actually cope with the pressure. But what happens, when their sports career ends, whether it's by choice or circumstance?
That's a huge piece of this puzzle that often gets overlooked, this transition out of being an athlete. It can be really tough.
Yeah.
It's about identity loss, uncertainty about the future, and potentially even feeling disconnected from their former social circles.
It makes me think about this friend I have. She was like a state champion swimmer in high school, got a swimming scholarship to college. But then she got injured and couldn't compete anymore. And she really struggled, like, figuring out who she was outside of swimming.
That's really common, actually.
Yeah.
And that's where this excerpt emphasizes how important it is to support these young people in developing a well-rounded sense of self, encouraging them to explore other interests, to think about career paths beyond sports.
You have a plan B.
Yeah, exactly. It can make such a huge difference in their overall well-being, both during and after their athletic careers.
So after diving into all of this, it seems like there's a lot we can do, to create a healthier, more supportive environment for these young athletes.
Absolutely. And this deep dive, I think, it really highlights that while the challenges are real, the solutions, they're within reach.
Yeah, I agree.
It's about shifting our priorities,
Yeah.
moving away from winning at all costs to really prioritizing the mental and emotional well-being of these young people.
And it's not just about sports, right? It's about fostering a culture of support and understanding in all areas of life.
Exactly.
I mean, maybe it's starting a conversation with your kids,
Yeah.
about the pressures they face, or researching what mental health resources are available in your community.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think every step, no matter how small, can make a difference.
Couldn't agree more. It all comes down to action. This deep dive. It's a call for us to step up and ensure that our young athletes, they feel supported, they feel valued, and they feel empowered. Both on and off the field.
So well said.
It's important stuff.
It really is.
Yeah.
All right. That's going to do it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening. And hopefully this, sparks some conversations and inspires some action.
I hope so too. We all have a role to play in this.
Absolutely. We'll catch you next time.
See ya.